math and studying statistics largely through my econ degree, and also studying computer science, I've worked across kind of like a bunch of different domains where this same set of programming and statistics skills pairs up to do a lot of very similar problems. So in the past, I worked in image exploitation, geospatial data visualization, and so once we talk a little bit more about like what this math and programming area is, then we can talk about maybe what those things are that are really similar. So, digital signals processing is math and statistics that makes for years work. So if you want to send one signal from something to something else, that information that you want to send is stored as binary information, so like ones and zeros. And so when you send a signal, you have to translate that information into something that can be physically transmitted. So typically that is electromagnetic waves. So you need to figure out how to make binary information into electromagnetic waves and then take those electromagnetic waves and put them back into binary information. And that's pretty much where all math happens. And so electromagnetic waves can be thought of as series of complex numbers. And there's this whole, people who study electrical engineering, not math and statistics, can tell you all about analog to digital converters that take series of complex numbers and they turn them into like physical electromagnetic waves. But that doesn't have to do with the area I work in. The area I work in is just taking that binary information and turning it into something that makes sense as that type of physical representation. So the way that people do that, typically, is the high-level steps is they take that information and they map it to something else that generally duplicates a lot of it. So if you lose stuff when you're sending it through the air, then all of the data that you're sending is trying to be lost, because it won't be lost. Because if you're like talking on a cell phone or something, you don't want whole words to drop out. Like you might hear it get almost staticky, but it's not going to be like you can't hear the words that people say. So the first step is encoding, which it mixes things up and it duplicates information. And then the next step is modulation. So it's taking that binary information and it's just mapping pieces of it to complex numbers. And then, the electrical engineers have some piece of hardware that does their stuff, and it goes through the air. And then it comes into a receiver. So this is that synchronization block. So when you're getting in all this information, then you're looking for something that has some type of structure that makes that you expect, because you're not, that like you're calling, for example, on your phones, a lot of them they'll advertise as being LTE. So they know that means they're going to be communicating with each other in like a specific way. And so they can say, all right, I'm looking for a signal that looks like this. And so let me listen, and when I catch a signal that looks like that, let me figure out a way to correct the error on that signal. And then once I've corrected it enough, I can map it back to binary data. And then reverse that encoding process to get binary information that actually means something, like a voice recording. And so that whole receive part, that synchronization, demodulation, and decoding, that takes a whole bunch of things that are going on in the air, finds the thing you're looking for, and then takes it all back to binary information. All of that heavily relies on statistics and probability. So that's the part of that. So how do you go about making one of these systems? So first you say, what does it need to do? Am I sending voice data? Am I transmitting like an internet signal? What is it that this application is doing? And am I just transmitting, or am I doing something else with it? Because you might not want to just synchronize and receive the data. You might want to say, I'm looking for some data that looks like this. Let me send out some type of signal that blocks it so somebody else can't get their information. So they might not just be trying to receive it. And then the next step is designing the algorithm. So saying like, okay, we'll have that synchronization block. Well, depending on what type of data I'm looking for, it might make sense to try and correct the error in different ways. And depending on how I encoded it, there are different types of models that can be used to to use probability to kind of say, oh, okay, well, based on the complex, these complex numbers that I received from my electromagnetic wave, it's probably going to be like certain sets of information, more than others. So there's lots of they can like iterate on that kind of solution to find information in different ways depending on what type of encoding schemes were originally used. So that's an aspect of the design that goes into these algorithms. And then the software implementation is more of like a computer science aspect. So you have to say things like, okay, well, I need my system to run fast enough to keep up with a phone call. So if you're just making a phone call to somebody else and you're sitting across the room, you hear them basically the same time they're talking. I mean, there's a little bit of a lag, but if you have to wait like a minute for all of those algorithms to run, that would be a really big issue with your phone. So that's the software aspect, and then you make them, and then you put them in this bigger application that makes all these higher level decisions like, oh, okay, like, am I dialing a number to make a phone call, or am I finding, some other type of signal and disrupting it? What is it that this is doing? And then you integrate it with a piece of hardware. So you say, oh, okay, well now, I have this phone that it needs to work on. And this can be really different depending on the situation. So for example, with Lockheed, we make satellites, and so satellites send and receive signals. And in space, a lot of this stuff works a lot differently than on Earth, because you can't put like the same kind of hardware into space than you can carry around in your hand. You can't just like send your cell phone into space and expect it to work fine, because there's like radiation and things like that that mess stuff up. So you have to say like, what kind of hardware is available for me to actually run all this code on, now that I have these models and I've implemented them. And then you keep doing those things over and over again until your thing will slow enough for whoever's paying you to make it. So why is statistics important? So I know that some people have taken statistics and some people have not. So just at a really high level, I talked about demodulation and decoding. So here, let's look at the other chart again. So with that demodulation step, so with modulation, we took binary information and made them complex numbers. When we go back, because they're not the same complex numbers we sent, because there was all this like error from just like sending something over the air, when we get the information back, it's not actually like ones and zeros. We can make them probabilities instead. So we can say, oh, based on the fact that we got this complex number and we know these were the possible complex numbers that we sent, here is the probability that it is these, like that this is a 1 versus a 0. So stuff like that can start to build, give us the information we need to build a model to find like our original data. So that's called soft decision demodulation. It's the second bullet point under the first one. Error correction codes use that information to try and like recover the initial binary information that you send. And then for synchronization, some of those methods that are listed that I think were referenced by some of the other speakers, they'll, like cross-correlation particularly, it'll let you find something, like it'll give an indicator if you have two series of numbers when with the place that they are similar. So say you have in in like that autocorrelation picture. So autocorrelation is cross-correlation, but it's basically when you're trying to compare something to itself. So there, when you're doing this, like if you're correlating F with F, you're going to get a response where in the middle of where you find that they're the same thing. So, so once you get, like, if you do this operation, you can kind of find where in the stream of data you're receiving the thing you're looking for is. So those are some of the ways that you use statistics to build these kind of models. So we talked about cell phones and satellites and things like that, but digital signals processing is in a lot of other applications other than just telecommunication systems. So all these things are telecommunication systems, and they're pretty different if you're working for a place like Verizon, that is a telecommunications company for commercial use, versus if you're working for a defense company. And you're making these type of systems for the government because they have different goals. So that they can do more things like the electronic warfare. It involves and a lot of the cyber stuff that people talk about in the news can involve receiving other people's signals that they don't want you to be able to receive. So that's a lot of statistics, trying to determine information that other people are trying to hide, and also like intercepting other people's signals so that they can't receive it. So that is what's called electronic warfare, which is a whole area of digital signals processing. And then in medical devices, there's a lot of really interesting new work in this area. I know that some people do research on putting like devices in people's brains to try and interpret like the signals that you can read from, and I don't know much about biology, but they can like interpret the signals that your brain sends, like to know itself and to the rest of your nervous system, and they can try and actually respond with like their own signals to control things like epilepsy and seizures. So there are a lot of applications in a lot of different fields that use all these same kind of concepts from digital signals processing. I wrote financial analysis on there because, so this is close to my heart from studying economics. I learned a lot about these cross-correlation, autocorrelation, a lot of these ways to compare a series of data from financial modeling, financial predictive classes when I was getting a master's degree in economics. And then I went to work in digital signals processing, and I found out that the reason we were doing this in econ was because a lot of this stock data and other financial data that they were using this kind of math on, it had a lot of like the same properties. It was the same type. It's technically a signal because it's like a series of information about a certain thing. And so you can, like a bunch of electrical engineers took all these models that they were using in digital signals processing and they just applied them to stock data. So it's really the same kind of math, the same kind of programming across a lot of different fields.
Hey David, it's time for the afternoon announcements, so let's get down to it. Girls cross country are reminded that sign-ups are tomorrow in 312. With the following people, please report to the main office: Peter Fago, Casey Heffertepe, Harrison Hotham, Lizzie King, Elizabeth LeBose, Justin Schneider, Madison Schneider, and Woods All students planning on-site next year's drumline are reminded that additional seats today and tomorrow, starting at 2:30 and additional family should show up in their for their during the specific time slot.
If you have a question, actually come on.